what you think about it. Sometimes it happens, contrary to our expectations, the research results are maybe exactly in the other direction. But our report has to only give or state some things that we have found out, and it should not be influenced by our personal thoughts. So it's a comprehensive document and it covers all the matter that we are studying. What is the significance of writing a report? See, it is a well-organized, well-planned document and it details the subject on which we are working. So it is said that the task actually remains incomplete. So you have carried out a research, but how does one know about it? Unless and until you do not document it, unless and until you do not present it in a form of a report, one will not know what kind of research you have actually done. So the purpose is not fully served unless your findings are made known to others. And why do we actually carry out research and make a report out of it? Because we want to add something to the existing knowledge. Whatever is the existing knowledge in a particular subject, we want to add on that. What is our research is built up on the existing knowledge, and now you want to add on to this existing knowledge to make that knowledge be known to all. The second is that because why did you carry out the particular research? Because you studied something and you found out that some part of it was not done. So you have identified that gap and now you want to fill up that gap. So you want to complete whatever was missing in that particular area. So you have done research. Until you do not present it in form of a report, the others will not know and they will still assume that the gap exists. So it is very important to make your findings known to all. What happens is when we do some research, it also opens up some other areas of research. So for example, if I have done some studies with respect to academic library in Mumbai, it can also mean that similar type of study can be carried out in some other part of India. So it opens up another area or a new vista for studies. So writing a report and making the findings of your research known to all is very, very important, because otherwise it is said that if research was not written up, did it really occur? So there is a doubt that people have if you have carried out a research but not really written a report. So whether research is done. Now we have everywhere seen that the importance of documentation. Any activity that we do has to be documented very well. Same is the case for research, that we have to document our research in form of a research report. So it is said that the greatest ideas are literally worthless if you keep them to yourself. So there has to be some execution of that idea. This idea has to be built upon by somebody else and knowledge has to advance. Scientific knowledge has to advance. When I'm using the term scientific in my entire presentation, I do not restrict it to science per se in terms of physics, chemistry, biology, and so on. Scientific here, I mean, is with a certain standard methodology. Okay. So looking at the various types of research report. Now, what are the various types of research report? Now, each of the research report will have slight change in its format, in its content, in its volume or size or coverage, you can say. So basically a research paper, suppose as a part of your course submission. So at MSc level, you have to do a seminar, or for that you have to write a paper. So that is also a research paper. You have to write a paper for a conference, a research for a journal, a research article for a journal, which will be the main part. Then you will have to write, suppose as a department or as a student, you have got a research grant along with your faculty for certain project. So as a part of this grant, you have to send a report of your work done to the authority or to the funding agency who has given you the research grant. When we talk about social science and humanities, we also have a state-of-art report or describing a situation or a fact-finding situation. So, for example, if I am an NGO and I want to start some medical service in this particular village, but before that, I need to understand what kind of services already exist, what services are going to be required, what is something missing that the villagers need. So for this, what I will be doing for is I will be requiring a state of the art, or I need to understand what is the current situation. So it's a fact finding exercise, but this is also a research. So I will be talking to villagers, I will be asking them what is the current situation. I will be talking maybe to the sarpanch or the panch to find out what he needs in this village. And based on all this primary data, I will be compiling a report and then deciding how much money to invest for this particular village. So such types of reports are also there and very common in the social sciences. So to understand or to describe this present scenario. Then we have short communication, which is very specific maybe to the sciences. In this short communication, there is a certain restriction on word limit. There is even a restriction of number of references. So actually what it covers, it primarily covers the preliminary nature of work. Now, why does one publish preliminary? My work is not complete, but maybe it is in the stage 2 or 3. I want to understand what it is. So in that case, what I will be doing is I will be publishing a short communication to exercise my ownership on that idea. So that is why I have a short communication. Okay. So next we have the report format. Now, the areas which I have listed in black font are the most common areas which all type of reports will have. Again, depending on the type of report that we are having. So whether it's a short communication, whether it's a PhD thesis, or whether it's a research paper, the other things in that will change. So a PhD thesis or a dissertation is also a very, very important format of a research report. Okay, so it will depend on that. So you may have contents as a section in the report if it's a particular thesis or it's a dissertation, or if it's a larger state-of-the-art report, a report of a government department which wants to find out certain things in a particular area. Okay, so when the report is large and its summary has to be given, that time instead of calling it an abstract, it is generally called it as an executive summary or a summary. So we have the title, which is the most important part of the report. Then we have the abstract. Then we have introduction, which also leads us to the research questions. That is, it gives us the objectives of our research, that why this particular research is being done. So we have a background, which is a part of the introduction. Then we have review of related literature. So literature review of that particular area or the related area in which we are planning to work or in which we have worked is very, very crucial. Because if somebody has already done something, there is no point in you repeating the same thing again. The basic concept of a research report is that it has to have some novelty. It has to add something to the existing literature. Okay, so review of literature, and depending on the type of the report, the quantum of the literature review will vary. So if it's a research article, see, there is no specific number that if it's a research and I should have 200 references, then it shows that I have really done some good reading and it proves my scholarship. No, it is nothing like that. Your references must be very, very relevant, but depending on the type of the report that you are writing, the quantum of the literature review will vary. So if it's a research paper, the number of references would be less. If it's a thesis, naturally the number of references and your bibliography will be larger than what it would be in a research paper. In short communication, of course, it again depends on the guidelines of the journals, but not more than 40 is kind of a general thing that many of the journals follow. Then comes your methodology or your method, procedure, the materials and methods that you have used. So in social sciences, it will be your tools, your research design. So whether you have used a questionnaire, whether you have used an interview schedule, or whether you are taking an oral history. So all this will be part of your methodology. And in science, what kind of experimental methods you have used, what is the way, what is the control temperature that you have used, what are the other parameters on which you are working. All this will be part of the methodology section. Then the results section. What is the results section? It will actually give you the what you have observed or what you have calculated. Then discussion. Discussion is the interpretation of the results. In results section, you will only state what you have observed, but in the discussion section, you will interpret your findings and write your own comments on that. In some cases, it is required that the results and discussion section is written together. Again, it depends on the format or the instructions that are given for a particular format of the research report. Then we have a conclusion. Sometimes this conclusion is also a last part of the discussion section. Then you have to also give recommendations and areas of future research. References, very important based on what you have built your research. Appendices and supplementary materials. So this can include a lot of other things like if you have used some tables or you have used some reference or some log material, so that will be your appendices and acknowledgement. Suppose your project is funded by somebody, then you will acknowledge the funding agency. So broadly, these are the types. Each of these types we will see in detail as we go ahead. So the process of actually writing a report is first to very clearly understand what is the purpose of the report. Why am I writing this particular report? And the moment I understand my objective of writing this research report, I will start planning the report in a very systematic manner. Then I will try and understand the structure of the report depending on what type. So if it is a thesis, my structure changes. If it's a short communication, my structure changes. If it's a research article, more or less my sections, the broad sections remain same, but what is additional and what is required changes in a large way. So whatever is the necessary information required, we collect the information for this report. Then we adopt an appropriate style of writing. Style of writing means sometimes there are very specific styles. So you are sending to a particular journal, then you have a format for a journal which is given to you by a journal. If you are writing as a part of a course, then your institute will give you certain format, or they will ask you to follow a certain format by a known organization. So for example, psychology students will follow the format of APA while writing a research paper. So American Psychological Association, it's a de facto standard in case of social sciences in many places. APA guidelines are used for referencing, for writing the structure of the report. So that way, either your institute will specify a format or ask you to use a certain format which is a standard format. So for thesis, the university very clearly defines a particular structure of the report, which section should be after which section is decided. Then chapterization is left up to the researcher to decide how he wants to chapterize his thesis. And you have to present your data very, very effectively and use appropriate style of referencing. This style of referencing is based either on your as I said, it depends on the subject. So in computer science, IEEE format is used. In chemistry, they might ask you to follow a style of a particular journal, or in psychology, the way we follow APA, in library science, we follow APA in most of the places. So depending on that, in the languages, you have either the MLA, which is followed very commonly, Modern Language Association. So there are various referencing styles, and I'm sure a lot of it has been talked about in yesterday's session. And you also had a demonstration of the two reference management tools. So you are aware of this terminology of various standards and various citation styles and style manuals. And then you have to carefully take into account all those who have helped you make this research report. So if it's a funding agency, if it's the lab supervisor or anybody else who has contributed, but not to the level of being the author, you have to give due acknowledgement also. So report writing, as I once again emphasize, is a very careful, meticulous, and a serious activity that has to be taken up by the researcher. So as we discussed, that there is a logical analysis of the subject matter. We have to prepare a proper outline, prepare a proper draft, rewrite, keep on polishing, because feedback is very important. Your guide or your teacher or your supervisor may give you a feedback. You also share your research with your peers and they also give you a feedback. So each feedback, take it positively, explain, suppose there is some kind that the person has not understood. So that is a help for you, because somebody from the audience, when your report is published, also might not understand. So try and make it more clear. So let there be clarity so that there is no kind of wrong communication from your report. Okay, so feedback is extremely important when we are writing. Then you prepare the final bibliography and final draft. Now this final is a very, very difficult stage, because we keep on revising, and then we have final 1, final 2, so many versions in our own desktop also. Then we write dates, final 27.1, final 29.1, and this process is on. But somewhere we have to see that it also improves the quality of our research report. Okay, now we go to the individual components of the research report. Like, now the basic format that is used for a research report is called as the IMRAD. This is mostly followed in the scientific community, but is also very much applicable for the social sciences. So this common part, that is introduction, methods, results, discussion, it might take some different names. So like methods, materials and methods is very commonly used in sciences, whereas in social science we called it as research methodology, research design, and so many other things. But powerfully, these are the 4 main structures and 4 main components of the structure. So why? What question does it answer? Why do you want to do a research? How are you going to do the research? What have you found out after you have done this particular research? And now what? So what are the implications of your research? How is it going to benefit the community, or how is it going to benefit the scientific community or the society, if it's a social science, or the society as a whole? So have you found out something by which time to do certain thing has reduced? Or have you found out something by which cost to doing something has reduced? Or have you found out a novel approach to do a particular thing? Okay, so things like that. So these 4 questions primarily answer why we are going to do a research, how we are going to do a research, what is that we have found, and now what are the implications of what I have found. So along with that, we will have the title, author, abstract, keywords, and very importantly, the references also. So as we see, the title, it's the very first way to get the attention of the reader. It should be very, very carefully done. Very long titles are not advisable. Keywords, you have to very much see that this paper should be read by whom? What type of audience do you want this paper to be read by? In that case, use proper specific keywords so that the paper is also picked up by various search engines. So you have to very, very carefully see, and don't make the title very long and try to give everything about it in the title. So make it adequate enough where it generates a kind of curiosity in the minds of the reader. At the same time, also indicates that yes, it is useful for my work. So I would further go and read it. So do not make or do not use abbreviations in the title. Do not use questions in the titles. Do not make your titles very, very long. Make them crisp and concise. What you have to primarily emphasize is what you have studied or what you have measured in this particular research, and what is that? That is the sample. A study of Mumbai institutes or a study of Maharashtra, or where you have to indicate your sample or your population in that title is very, very important. So we will have a look at one or two examples. See, a title has to be clear and concise. We do not want a newspaper style or something that way to attract the attention. So just read the first title. That is the impact of temperature and pressure on compositional uniformity of sputter deposited aluminum alloys. So what it is showing, it is studying the impact of temperature on something. This is the first title, which is okay. Now look at the second title in red, which shows optimizing temperature and pressure improves sputter deposited aluminum alloy films. So what is the researcher doing here? The researcher is actually giving out what has happened, but that is not how the title should be. It is not required to give your result in this. So what it is saying? Optimizing the temperature and pressure will improve a certain thing. No, this is a part of your result and it should not be a part of your title. What you need to say is you want to study what is the impact. Okay. And very importantly, title will be given once you have completed the research work. And at many places, you will have to give your title based on what you have to do. So for example, in a thesis, you will give a title that what you are going to do. So this part of what is your result can never come in a title for a thesis. Understand? So anyway, this is not the correct way to do it. You don't have to mention your research results in the title. Okay. So now if you have not given the kind of approach, so in science, it is assumed that it is an experimental approach. In social science, we say a study, but it is nowadays required to specify whether it's a survey or whether it's a qualitative analysis or whether it's an oral history. So specific part like that has to become in the title. That is nowadays a requirement of many universities. So then if this is okay title and this is not a correct title, then what is a good title? A good title is something which will give you the aim and kind of indicate your approach of doing the work. So now you look at the third title, that is the impact of temperature and pressure on simulated compositional humidity. So it is using a certain approach, and that is simulation. So the title is indicating what it wants to study. It wants to study the impact of temperature and pressure and how and what is the method or what is the approach. So it is going to use simulation of some kind when it is studying this particular thing. So now when we look at these three titles, it is very clear to us that the aim of the work and the approach has to be very clearly given in the title. Okay. Then comes the abstract. Okay, just a minute. Is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So then comes the abstract. Now, what is an abstract? Abstract is a concise summary of your entire research work. Okay. So generally the length that the journal article will give you is that you have to write an abstract of 200 to 250 to 300 words. So a specific word limit has to be will be given for a particular abstract. Now you have to write an abstract in such a way that the reader would further like to read your paper, and most importantly, it must be very, very consistent with the contents of the research paper. Not that you make a very attractive abstract, but that is not there in your entire paper. That is a very, very wrong practice. So it has to be consistent with the contents of a paper, and it should be a kind of a summary. So it should give what you tried to do, what you have found out, and what are its implications, and how you did it. Of course, the method in a very, very brief way. Okay, then it allows the reader to decide whether you want the reader wants to use the particular paper, and it is always written in past tense. Okay, because the work has already happened. Now, an abstract can be of various types. So, it generally an unstructured abstract means a common one single paragraph where we write all these things, that what we wanted to study, how we studied, what we found, and what are the implications. So that in a single paragraph. There is also another way of writing an abstract, which is called as a structured abstract, in which you have to specifically give aim, objectives, results, and that is called a structured abstract. So many of the journals require you to give a structured abstract, and specifically in the synthetic chemistry, biological sciences, now we also have something called as graphical abstract. So the use of figure to give the entire paper. In one figure, your entire paper has to be given or summarized. Okay. So generally abstract is the first part of the report, but it is always advisable to write the abstract after your entire paper is done. Okay. So it is very that you have to convey the importance and objectives, your results, the significance of your study, and relevance of the study, that why this study was important, along with your conclusions. So these are basically the parts of the abstract. Now, if you look at this one of the abstract, this is just an abstract given in a single paragraph. So it is an unstructured abstract. Whereas a structured abstract will be something like this, where you have to give the keywords, introduction, review, methodology, everything like this. For example, look at this particular abstract, where it's an abstract for a particular paper, but you are required to write this down like this in different sections, like introduction, objective, methods, results, and conclusion. So this way you have to write down, and this is called as a structured abstract. Then the third type that we have is a graphical abstract. So using a figure or a diagram to indicate the entire contents of the paper is a graphical abstract. So here you are free to use colors to highlight the certain important topic. What is most important is you have to maintain some logic in this diagram that you are, or this figure that you will be presenting. And you see to it that this figure is not a part of the paper, in the sense that this abstract is something that will cover the entire paper. But your figure will have different different figures, which will give different sections. So this figure will be an independent figure giving the summary of the entire research report. Okay. So just for example, this. So here it is showing an effect of a particular chemical, and then it is testing the in vitro toxicity. Now this is not my subject, so I may not be able to explain you each and every step, but looking at this, what we understand that it is showing a reaction on a certain with various catalysts, and then it is giving you, it is testing the in vitro toxicity. So inside the cells, what is the toxicity of this particular reaction is what is indicated in this diagram, and therefore this is what the research actually did. So in just one single figure, you are supposed to explain the summary of your work done. Okay. Then comes the introduction section. Now this is the why section of our format, where it explains the research problem, that why you want to do this particular research and what are the research questions, what you will actually study, and there will always be some limitations to a particular study. So for example, when I did my studies, I had excluded medical libraries from my study, primarily because the doctors there were very busy and were not able to answer my query. So they did not have time. So not covering the medical institute was one of the limitations of my study, and which has to be very, very clearly being stated in the introduction part or in the research report, depending on what type of report you are writing. So it will explain us why we are doing particular study. And as we can see, we have to first introduce what is known about the topic, that is what is global, then come to the local part of it, then give the broad topic, and then narrow down and identify what we want to do. And that is how the introduction section leads to our research questions. Okay, the aims and objectives of our research. Now comes the next section, that is the literature review. And in the previous two sessions also, I think there was some coverage, because reference management tool cannot be actually explained without understanding literature review as a basic part. So as we see, and you know that there are three primary sources, there are different three types of sources, that is primary, secondary and tertiary sources. Primary sources are something which will give you first-hand information or give you new discoveries. And then you have books, and then you have these indexing and abstracting or citation databases. So primary, secondary, and all this we use throughout our research. So when we don't know a particular topic, first we find out generally about the topic. Then when we have understood the basic of the topic by reading some books or reading some review articles and some other things, then we want to find out what is the latest thing done. So then we start using a citation database or an indexing abstracting tool. Then we find out the new articles, then we start following up on the new articles. So this is the way we actually proceed and collect a lot of literature. Now this section is very, very important, and we actually start our entire research with first understanding the literature available in the particular subject. So what is the current stage? Where is the research, or where is this topic right now? Who has done what work? Who are the important people who have worked in this area? And what is the current state, and where is your gap? What are you going to study depends on what is already studied. So again and again, duplication of the same kind of research is not required. We may derive our work from something which is similar but in a different setting, which is acceptable because there is still some novelty to it. But doing something that some other person has already done is not correct. So a very comprehensive literature search and a literature review is extremely important to first identify our problem. Okay. And when we are writing the literature review, now here we can see that in this figure we have given the various uses why we are doing, to find out what already exists, what is the gap in the literature, where the other people are working, what are the major or seminal works, who are the main people who have worked in this particular area. Okay, what is the method that has been commonly used for all this research work? Then what have they concluded, or what have they found out? Then actually come to what you want to study, because there is a particular gap and why you want to study, and then show the relationship of your work with this existing literature. Okay. So, and there are various ways to present the literature review part in your research report. Now, when we are specifically talking about the research report, the presentation of the literature review will depend primarily on the type of report. So whether we are using a thesis, it will be an independent chapter. So for a thesis, the review of literature is an independent chapter. But when we are writing a research paper for a particular journal, or you are writing it as a part of your course, then it will be a section in the paper. So it will depend on type of roles, and there are various ways to arrange the literature. Okay, there has to be some logic, some flow. Okay, so it can be chronological if you want to show that this is the development happening till now, and now I am going to carry on the development beyond this. It can also be thematic. That means it is based on a particular theme. So you have different areas of the same. So the subtopics of the main umbrella topic are arranged and it becomes a thematic. So, or you can go from known, what is known in this area, to coming to what is not known, where that will lead to your research question. The unknown is your area of research. Okay, then it can, so for example, when we consider medicine, it can also be problem, cause, and solution. So what is a problem? This is not necessarily only medicine, it can be a social science problem also. So problem, what are the probable causes, and which cause do you suggest, and what is the solution for this? So a problem, cause, solution is also one of the ways. So various solutions are given. So in your literature review, you will give the problem, you will give the causes, you will give certain solutions. You will actually present certain solutions which are already given, but you might have a very different or a unique, novel way to handle this particular problem. So that becomes the way of presenting the literature review as a problem, cause, and a solution. Some things that you have to keep in mind is include only those references that you have actually read. Do not include irrelevant or peripheral references just to make the literature review look bulky. Okay, or you feel that, oh, if I show this that I have read 100 papers, it makes me look very scholarly. No, it is nothing like that, because the person who evaluates actually understands very well what has been done. Okay, do not take people for granted thinking that it is, I can just fake all this. No, it does not happen. And currency of the information and adequate coverage of seminal or fundamental papers or classic references is very, very important. The most important thing of literature review is you just do not make summary of what he has written, X has said so and so, Y has said so and so. No. What is your take on that? What is your critical analysis on that? What was good about a particular paper that you are going to use in your study? Or what is the appreciated part of the paper that you feel that was the best part of the paper? Some kind of critical analysis. It's not just an annotated bibliography with abstracts, but it is a review. We are calling it as a literature review, where there is input from your side, which is very, very essential. Then as we see, as I explained, that you go from a larger background and you come to a specific topic, and the gap in the literature is your research question. You know, it is very much sometimes compared to the peeling of the onion. So as we peel out the onion, what remains in between, the last part, that is actually your research question. This was in one of the sessions, somebody had told it, and I really can understand that. It really was a very good analogy that I remembered it constantly when I was writing my literature review. And believe me, it is not easy to write a literature review section. You have to be very, very careful and meticulous. So as we are writing the literature review, whether it's a part of the report or whether it's a part of the thesis, you have to select the topic, search appropriate literature, develop your argument that why you want to do particular research, then accordingly further take your search for literature in that direction. Read the proper literature and give your own analysis of it, and then write a review. Okay, so these are the steps involved in literature review. Then comes the methods or the material methods section of your report, where you will be discussing about the design of the study, the sampling techniques, okay, what area or field or what was your setup in terms of science, what was your setup, Then you will describe the tools or the instruments. So in social sciences, if it's towards a questionnaire, you will describe how the questionnaire was constructed, what questions does the questionnaire broadly answer. So that if there are 5 questions in the questionnaire, you will say section 1 tries to find out information on this area, section 2 tries to find out information on some other area. So this way you will describe your tools, your instruments, your sampling techniques, and there is a data collection protocol. So how you approached people, or in terms of science laboratory, what is your protocol of doing the particular experiment. And there is also a very important concept of ethical statements when it comes to animals in biology or in psychology. When we are dealing with human subjects, there is a consent form that has to be taken and all this. So this is a part of the research methodology that you are going to follow, but all this is to be covered in this section. Okay, it should explain when, where, how the research was done. Okay, and you have to write it in such a way, such a clear and transparent way, that if somebody wants to do the same study, he should be able to get every possible information from your research paper or from your research report. All throughout the report is written in the past tense. Okay, so we have to be very, very meticulous in our documentation so that your research is a reproducible research. Reproducible research in the sense it is an attribute of research, a good attribute of research. If your research is reproducible, that means when somebody else also can follow your methodology and kind of get similar results. I am not saying similar in terms of exact same, because it depends on your sample, but the methodology can be replicated. Okay, then comes your result section, which is very important, how you present the result section. In this section, you have actually to give what you have found out. That is, whether you have measured it, calculated it, observed it, all this you have to present here. Okay, be very clear in presenting this. You have to present it either in form of the text, then you may use figures, you may use tables appropriately. Decide depending on what and how you want to project, you will decide to use a figure or a table or text. So some things, each kind of a result or each kind of an observation will be used in a particular way. But remember, you are not supposed to repeat or do not duplicate. So you are explaining in text also, and then again giving in table, and then making the graph of the same table. That is not required. You have to be very, very, very specific. But yes, if it is a thesis, you have to explain also, and the table is also required in case of thesis. But in case of a research paper, it is not required. So if you have written, given it in form of a table, yes, then you need not again explain it in a form of a paragraph. Okay, so visual representations, let the diagram speak for itself. Okay, use appropriately, not that make n number of graphs and then n number of tables, not like this. Decide which is to be used when, which will best convey your research result in the best possible format. Decide to use them. Here we are not going to discuss or interpret any of the research findings. Okay, in this result section, we will only give what we have found. Now, there are a few journals which may ask you to have results and discussion section together. In that case, you will have to do it. But as a normal format, results are given in one section, discussion and interpretation is followed in the next section. Okay, so here you have to summarize what you have found and you have to focus on the key results. So you design the results section in such a way that whatever were your research questions or your research objectives are getting answered through this. So that is what you have to kind of take your research results in that direction. That means your presentation. I am not saying to fabricate your research results. What I here mean is the presentation of your research results. Okay. Now, figures and graphs, they are a very important part of our research paper, and as we all know that a figure is worth 1,000 words. So use proper good resolution images, keep them simple, neat, labeled, very self-explanatory. The figure should speak for itself, and entire paper should also be well formatted. And specifically when you are using figures or tables, see to it that they are really well formatted. You know, not that there are five items in a table, 4 are on one page and the rest 2 are on the next page. It's a very bad way of writing. Or suppose the table is very big, so it has more than 20-25 items, okay, and then you have a common heading, so that heading also you ensure that you repeat it on the next page, not that you continue till here you have given 19 items and then you continue from 20 there. No, whatever was the heading of the table has to come here with on the next page also, wherever possible. So make it very, very self-explanatory, very well formatted, give proper headings, and see to it that the tables and the charts or the figures speak for themselves. Okay. Now, for using this or throughout your research reports, we have to be very specific and very scientific in using the terminology. So whether when it is chemistry, see to it that you use proper IUPAC nomenclature. For biological sciences, you use acceptable taxonomical names, okay, and use SI units for measurements. All these are standards that we have to follow when we are doing our research reporting also, because you have an international audience, okay. There might be some local names, but we are not supposed to use them. We will use standards which are accepted universally, okay. Next, now how do I decide what I want to actually present in form of a table or what I want to present in form of a graph? And never you are going to do two things together as far as the research paper is surely concerned. You have to decide when to use a figure, when to use a table. So only when you are giving a data for a particular item single, then you use a table. But you have to compare two things, or you have to compare the answer of this question with a previous question. You will use a graph. So suppose I want to say those who are using the library physically are also using the online resources. So I have asked two independent questions, and now I want to see if they are using this, are they using this also? Then I will kind of use a graph. Okay, this is a very simple example that I am giving you, so that graphs are generally used when you have to compare something, or you have to compare two samples. What happened in Mumbai, does it similarly happen in Pune, is something you will compare using a graph. Okay, what happened with this particular composition, did it happen with that particular composition? Then you will compare. Then a table is not the better way is to use a graph than use a table. Okay, so you have to decide and you have to apply your mind what best is going to be seen, or how best you can display in terms of either a figure or a table. Okay, then comes the discussion section, which is the most important section in terms where you will be interpreting and explaining your research results. You will be answering the research questions, okay, and you will be justifying that based on this particular observations and with the help of the existing literature, this is what can be proved. Okay, it is very important to come to a final proper critical evaluation of the study that you have done. That means what you have observed is what you have discussed in the result section, but here you have to explain why was this particular observation so, why you have observed this. So here you have to again summarize, but you have to interpret your findings very, very clearly and kind of give the implications of the study. Okay, the last section of your report will be the conclusion section. In many times what will happen is the discussion section is merged with the conclusion section, or in case of a thesis, it's kind of a final chapter of your entire thesis. So here we have to know, we have to also in this conclusion write down what we have found out, why we have found out, what is the novelty of our research work, and how it has advanced from the existing knowledge base. Okay, so from our existing knowledge, after this study, what is new thing that has been identified or brought to the notice of the other researchers. Okay, then here you will also give what are the possible applications of this study, what are the areas of future research. Okay, you have to give a clear and proper justification of your entire work in this particular section. Okay, so as I said, in some journals there is a separate section, or it is a last paragraph after the discussion, or in the thesis it's a separate chapter. Okay, the chapterization is up to us. So there are two things that you have to remember very carefully. You have to show it as a single thought throughout the paper. You know, there has to be a cohesive approach, a cohesiveness in writing, you know, not random thoughts here and there. It has to be bound by a single thought from starting to end. You have to write it a kind of an essay, but not not leaving the creative part aside, because here you have to be very, very technical and specific. But you have to write it like a story, a single thought that runs across all your particular sections. That is very, very important, because that cohesiveness of the research report will actually make the reader stick to your report. Otherwise, midway they will find it bol chhod nahi padne ka abhi chhod de isko, ye boring hai. You will go ahead. So keep that interest in the reader. And what then, how to keep that interest is very, very important. Okay, when we go to the attributes of a good research paper, we will be looking at all this. So this reference, as I have again and again emphasized, that literature review is a very important section, and it actually is not only an important section of the report, but is the most important section of the entire research work that we carried out. So it has to be current, you have to be updated. It is very, very important. So when we are citing in our report, so we use in-text and reference list. I think Jyoti madam yesterday very clearly mentioned what is in-text. So when you are writing and using it within the text, you will write it, either you will use numbers or you will use the name of the author as shown here. So in-text, and then there will be a bibliography towards the end of the chapter. So while writing within your research report, you will write that Smith said this, or Smith argued this, or this was discovered by ABC. So that will be as a part of your text which you will be writing, and towards the end you will be giving a bibliography. This was covered yesterday also. And now, for example, I mentioned to you about various citation styles. Okay, there are certain standard citation styles like MLA, APA, Chicago, Harvard, Vancouver, and each journal may have a different style. Biological science people say follow the Nature journal reference style. Computer science people say follow the IEEE style. So this way there are various standards. So I have just taken an example of my own paper, and I have just shown that, see the difference. So for example, in APA the year will be here, and in Harvard the year is here, but it's without a bracket, whereas in MLA the year is here. So these are small things, but we have to be very, very careful. Now we are all blessed that with the help of technology we can take care of all these things, but fundamentally it is very important to know what kind of bibliographic fields you are going to cover in your, so whether it is a book, then what will you use? Whether it's a research paper, then what will be used? So these are certain fundamental things that it's good to know even if you are using a particular tool, because sometimes there is something on the internet which is missing, and therefore the tool also cannot help you. So then you have to understand that अरे इसमें volume number आया ही नहीं है, तो मुझे अभी इसको ढूंढ के फिर डालना पड़ेगा. So there are several things like this. Okay, so it is very essential that you understand the concept of reference management manually. You use a tool, yes, of course, but then you should be also able to understand that if there is some kind of a small miss, you should be able to identify that also. Okay, then appendices. What do we include in appendices? So suppose I have done a survey, then I will include my questionnaire not as a part of my main report, but it will be a part of the appendix. Okay, so then transcript. So if I have interviewed some villagers, as I mentioned in that example, then I will use the transcript of that interview. Then some lengthy derivatives of equations or whatever is there, that I will include. Some maps or some specific data sheets that I have maintained in my lab, all this will be a part of my appendices. Okay. Then acknowledgements. So all those who have contributed. Now acknowledgements in a research paper will come towards the end, whereas in a thesis, generally it comes before. Okay, right in the first initial sections, we have to mention the acknowledgements. So if a funding agency has given you support to carry out a research, the name of the funding agency will be in the acknowledgement section. The technicians, the lab supervisors, some friend of yours who has really advised you very well for this paper, but is not a contributor. Okay, all those who have helped but have not contributed in actual research conduct, because these are also parts of ethics of research, that just don't put names of everybody ki मेघना नीलम मैडम का नाम डालेगी, नीलम मैडम मेघना मैडम का नाम डालेगी, जो कुछ भी पब्लिश करेंगे उसमें. That is, these are not ethical ways of research publications. So be very specific about whose names you will include and whom you will give acknowledgement to. Okay. So there are also some other very important, where specifically a research paper, this I will rush through very fast because this is particularly for a research paper. So the order of author, who becomes the first author, who has been the major contributor should become the first author. If it's a student and a researcher, the general norm followed all throughout is the student is the first author, whereas the supervisor or the research guide is the second author. But there has been controversies with some supervisors claiming their name to be first, but we do not want to get into all that. But author order, you have to be careful. When you are sending your paper to the editor also, your wordings have to be very, very carefully worded, and you have to, in just 2-3 sentences, explain very nicely why your paper is worth considering for this journal. Okay. Then unethical practices, as I mentioned, that we are not going to give any kind of authorship to anybody just because they are, in some way, or nor is my work going to be written by anybody else. So ghost and guest authorship, these are some unethical practices that we should not get into. And how do you find where to publish a journal? Okay, so now you have the UGC care list, you have journal finder tools, various publishers have these journal finders, and then you should avoid predatory journals. What are predatory journals? Predatory journals are something where, because see, it's a very, you have done a very hard work and you have come out with this research report. So do not just give it just because mera article publish ho gaya, par wo kahan publish ho gaya. It is very important to understand the quality of the journal where it is going to be published. So there are some people who are just publishing, or they are making this as a business and taking articles. तो आज मैंने भेजा तो 3 दिन में मेरा आर्टिकल एक्सेप्ट हो गया, ऐसा कभी भी होता नहीं है. Reviewers take their own sweet time if it's a proper authentic journal. So do not fall in trap of these kind of predatory journals at all. So when you are doing such a hard work and you are reporting it, making a nice research report, do not give and hand it over to such kind of predatory journals. Okay. Now, as far as the language of your entire paper is concerned, see, nobody expects you to use Shakespearean English or, very great creative, big words, big adjectives. No. Be very clear, crisp, and concise in the language that you are using. Use proper scientific terminology. Keep sentences very simple and small. Do not make unnecessarily long sentence and continuous, so that the reader gets confused in your sentence. Okay. Don't use common phrases. Be very technical. Use standard terms, standard abbreviations. So wherever a abbreviation is coming, you are using it for the first time in the research report, You give the full form and then onwards start using the abbreviation in the entire report. See, generally the report is, always the report is written in the past tense and in third person. But nowadays in some kind of journals, this we, I has been allowed. But it's a very new way and only very few. But otherwise the standard thumb rule is past tense, third persons. That means the researchers carried out the experiment in so and so setting. Okay, I carried out, we carried out generally is not used. But nowadays the trend is towards actually writing it like that also. But that is very, very rare. And don't use ambiguous term. This is close to this other place. Not close to, mention the distance. 200 meters, 1 kilometer, whatever. Because this is science. This is specific. You have to be very, very specific in using terminology. Okay? There is nothing like some, roughly, no. You have to be specific and accurate as far as whatever you are writing in your research report. Okay? Then precautions. The very first thing is, just because you can write nicely, format nicely, present nicely, doesn't mean you will keep on writing, because there has to be some originality in the research that you are carrying out. Unnecessarily making the research report long has no meaning, because it has to be concise and crisp and say what you want to say in a very short time. Okay, don't include some abstract terminology. The layout of the research report should be as per the type of report. So if it's a journal paper, it will be according to the specifications of the journal. If it's a thesis, it should be according to type of the university has laid down guidelines. It has to be according to that. If it's a short communication, it has to be according to that. If you are writing a state-of-art report for a particular agency, then they must be giving you some guidelines. So follow those guidelines. See, learn to follow guidelines. It is very, very important. Stick to the standard guidelines wherever specified. Half of your work gets easy if you read the instructions carefully and follow the format as given by whatever is the agency. Properly list all your appendices. Spell out the acronym. As I said, abbreviation, acronym, spell it out for the first time you are using it in your research report, and then you can start using the short form. Proper bibliography of resources which you have consulted. Okay, if you have used an electronic resource, proper DOI, that is the digital object identifier, should be properly given. See to it you don't miss the last numbers or something. Be very careful about it. Then state the limitations of your study very clearly. And always try and publish, if you are publishing, if it's not a thesis, under a same name. Because then otherwise academic credit goes away. I understand there are various problems. You know, sometimes I say M Sanjeeva, then otherwise I will say MM Sanjeeva, then I will use Meghna Sanjeeva. So we should not at least do this. Now, for sometimes for girls, the name changes and so all, some problems are unavoidable. But now we have the ORCID ID where you can uniquely identify yourself. So those are there. But at least when I am using, I should have a standard format in which I use my name. Okay, I cannot be using once M Sanjeeva, then once Meghna Sanjeeva, then MM Sanjeeva. No. So I will try and use it in a standard way. Okay. Now coming to a very, very important concept of plagiarism, which we have to be very careful about in this entire process of research and research report as well. So what is plagiarism? It's why we have spoken so much about proper referencing, proper bibliography, use of Zotero, use of Mendeley. It's to see to it that we are not getting into the act of copying. Okay, copying somebody's things verbatim, means as it is called plagiarism. Sometimes it might really be unintentional, but in the academic world, it is not acceptable. Okay, so what happens is, experiment I have done very nicely. Research results are my own. Based on that, I am writing my interpretation also very well. But what happens mainly is, I am writing the introduction in such a way that it is copied. So no, plagiarism, it can be intentional, it can be unintentional, but avoid anything, write properly, paraphrase, summarize everything very properly and give due credit to whoever has written it. Okay, so, and if you are in doubt, then always cite. That is the thumb rule of citation. That cite, if you have slightest doubt this will be, whether it will be considered plagiarized or no, it's better to give clear citation there and there itself and be free from this kind of tension. Now with so much tools and technology available, spelling error, grammar error is really not acceptable. So try and use good tools for this and spell check your paper, proofread your paper n number of times. Okay, so what is considered to be a good research report? It's the novelty of your research work. Okay, first and the foremost is the novelty, accuracy, following certain guidelines of the particular subject or your discipline, simplicity. Very, very important is simple. You have to write it in simple words. Your novelty also, the new part of it also has to be significant. It cannot just be a very small or a minute new thing in it. It has to be significant. There has to be complete clarity in the way you are presenting your report. Brevity. Brevity is brief, being brief. Don't make stories. Here we are not doing storytelling. Okay, we are conveying our research results, findings of our research in a very brief, but in a way which is very well understood. Okay, sometimes you also get comments from people that your research writing is very, very verbose. Verbose means to use more words than they are actually required. So the same thing I say like this, once in active voice, then once in passive voice, and I make big paragraphs. So that is really not good way of writing. So be concise, be crisp, and keep in mind that you should not waste the time of the reader when you are actually writing the report. Okay, and cohesiveness, very, very important part. It has to be cohesive. Use correct language, scientific terminology. There has to be a good logical flow. Only then will the proper cohesiveness be there in your report. Format. Now you have so many tools. Format your paper nicely. Format your thesis nicely. And adequately, your objectives should one by one be answered properly through your research report. ऐसा नहीं कि सोचा ये करेंगे लेकिन मिला कुछ और ही. There has to be a one-to-one correspondence between your objectives and your results, your findings. There has to be a one-to-one correspondence very clearly when you are presenting your research in form of a research report. Okay. So academic writing elements, I am again emphasizing, it's a formal language. Third person, it's used written in third person generally, but nowadays it is allowed. There is a conventional structure, so you have a standard format. There has to be an objective tone. That's what I said. There has to be a one-to-one correspondence. What you wanted to find and what you have found, very clear. Okay, it has to be for a particular audience. So you are writing a paper in chemistry for chemists. So you have to use proper scientific term. You are not writing this for a layman. Okay, so keep your audience properly in mind and accordingly write it. Perfect spelling and grammar is very, very essential. We are not going to write stories and essays and creative writing and Shakespeare and English, but we cannot be technically wrong when we are writing. Okay, so again, if it's a research paper, we follow this format of IMRAD, that is introduction, materials, results, and discussion. Okay, but if it is a thesis, okay, you will have acknowledgements first, as I mentioned. Then a thesis or a large kind of a report will have something called as an executive summary. Now this also depends. The university may still insist on calling it an abstract, and then you have to still call it an abstract. Okay, then introduction, materials, then you see conclusion, recommendations. Now discussion and conclusion here is a separate chapter, references, appendix. So as a form of a thesis, these are the contents. Now we move on to the various tools. Now there are n number of tools that are available for various activities. Okay, I do not claim that the kind of tools that I'm going to list here are comprehensive or this list is an exhaustive list. Day in and day out, new tools come into the market. Day in and day out, new apps are made. So I might tell you about a particular website, but there might be various tools which will be available in form of apps that you all are more comfortable in using. So the choice is yours, but I am just kind of going to list some tools to make you understand that so many things can be simplified or so much of good presentation can be done when we are using certain tools. Okay, so what we will be looking at is mind map tools. Now, where will you use these mind map in your, where it comes to research report? It can be used in your literature review section in for a thesis, not for a research report, because you will have restriction of maybe a number of words, 7,500 words, 10,000 words or so on. But in your literature, you can use this in your thesis when you are writing your literature review. So as I said, you can arrange your review in different ways, chronologically, thematically, from known to unknown, problem, cause, solution. So in the same way, you can make a mind map of your topic. Okay, and the same mind map can be used as a thematic way to represent your literature review components. So in a glance, the person who is looking at your thesis understands that all these peripheral areas were also very well read by the researcher to arrive at this particular research problem. So a mind map tool can be used there. Then collaborative working tools. So you suppose there are two authors for a paper. I write something and I want my friend to correct it or my co-researcher to correct it. So we use collaborative tools like Google Docs, for example, is a very simple collaborative tool where I can just write and then Neelam madam can immediately make changes that she wants in them. So these are collaborative tools. So suppose you want to send the same thing to your guide for correction, you can make use of these tools. Then survey software. In social sciences, we do a lot of surveys. So what are the various? So you have Survey Gizmo, Survey Monkey, we use Google Forms. So many tools are now available. What was the scenario earlier? We used to make prints and copies of questionnaire, then send it by post, send a self-addressed envelope to, you have not seen these world, students, but this is what used to happen. A self-addressed envelope used to go where the person who will respond to your survey will fill up the questionnaire, and then using your self-addressed and stamped envelope, he will put his questionnaire, the answered one, and send it back to you. Then so much of time. So now we are blessed in this world with technology that things are at our fingertips. But using the right tool for the right work is very, very important. Then for plagiarism detection, we have various softwares. Statistical analysis, we have R, we have SPSS, so many softwares. Infographic tools. What are these infographic tools? So I want to represent in form of graph, or I want to represent in form of nice, graphical way. So then I have different infographic tools. Then writing tools. My English can be corrected. MS Word, all of us write, but you have a grammar check there, spelling check there. Then you have reference management tools like Zotero, Mendeley, which you all have seen yesterday. Then again, as English language, there are specific tools to improve my writing. Okay, I have to be corrected here. It's plagiarism detection. I have missed the word here. Plagiarism detection software. Okay, so to begin writing with, then we can see we have Google Docs, which is also used as a collaborative tool. Then Word. Then okay, now I don't have this proprietary software of MS Word. Then I can use open source softwares like LibreOffice or OpenOffice. Then in mathematics they use LaTeX, or in many journals they ask you to prepare your document on LaTeX. Okay, the same way for collaborative working in LaTeX, you have Overleaf LaTeX. This is also one of the other softwares. So for collaborative also you have Dropbox Paper, Quip, Etherpad. Okay, mind map tools. MindMister is one of the very good mind maps tools that you can use. You can create nice visual representation of your entire literature. There are in fact many more visualization tools. Excuse me. many more visualization tools where your literature can be written in a very or presented in a very nice way. So some of the more mind map tools are Mindomo, Poplet. So now it's not that I have used each and every tool of this. I haven't used this list I am giving you. It's just indicative to tell you that what all can be done using various tools and how our research writing can be enhanced, improved using these tools. So for survey software, we can use Google Forms, we can use SurveyMonkey, then there is Survey Sparrow, then Typeset, statistical software. Now R software is an open source software. You have SPSS, which is a paid software. Then there is Minitab, SAS. SAS is also become very popular now. Now in most of these softwares nowadays, the concept is freemium. So some part of it is free. And then if you want more, so for example, in SurveyMonkey, up to 10 questions and 100 participants, you can do a free survey. But beyond that more or some more features if you require, then you have paid. So similarly, like we all now used Zoom. So up to 40 minutes, it was initially free. And then after that, if we want for a longer time, we have to take the paid version. So this concept of freemium, that is paid plus free and paid together, is very, very common nowadays. So today I will say that this particular software is free, but when you actually go and use it, you might see that, अरे इसके आगे तो पैसा मांगता है, मैम ने तो बोला था free है. So therefore there is no such, I am not going to list anything as particularly as a free software or this, but these are various tools available. Okay, so to create graphical abstracts or to create good figures. So if you are a biology student, microbiology, biotechnology, or you are a chemistry student where you need to display a lot of things using your chemical structures or your figures, then you should be able to use good graphical software. Okay, ChemDraw, if the chemistry students must know about this software, ChemDraw. There are many more like this, you know, CorelDRAW, which we generally see the artist or the architects using this, but many of these are also used for our work. Infographic tools. Infographic means something that can be described in form of tables and in form of nice graphs and other things. So PictoChart is a very popular infographic tool. Similarly, Canva. Again, in Canva also some part is free, the rest is paid. So like this, there are several tools, you know. A simple Google query will also give you all this. By no means I want to claim that this is an exhaustive list of tools, but it is just indicative for you to understand that what are the various things we can do with the help of the software. Okay, then for English language, in MS Word also we have spelling and grammar. We have a software called Gingerly, Grammarly. Then there are some more, you know, like Style Writer, Pro Writing Aid, which are all helpful for improving our grammatical writing and writing correctly English language. Then reference management tools, Zotero, EndNote. Now EndNote is a proprietary software. Mendeley is again free and premium both. Okay, then BibTeX. CiteDis for me is actually a website which all of you can try. Okay, CiteDis from me, you just identify the type of paper. So whether you are using a research paper or you are using a website or you are using a report, and give the details, it will search that particular reference. Then once you click on it, then you will get the proper citation in the format that you want. Okay, whether you want APA or you want MLA, Chicago, IEEE, whatever is the format that you require, it will give you in that particular format. Okay, and plagiarism detection softwares. So you have Urkund, you have Turnitin, Authenticate, Drillbit. Drillbit is an Indian software. Viper is again a free software, but I am not really very sure how well one should really use these freely available ones which are on the internet, because sometimes it is also said that it stores your work in its repository. So next time when you have revised your document and again searching it in these free ones, okay, I am talking specifically about the free ones which are totally free. So you have to be careful that you should not deposit it in their repository. So like this, we have n number of tools which are available for all these various activities that we have to do throughout our research process and throughout the writing of report. Because you will draw graphs when you are writing the report. You will draw an infographic when you are writing a report. You will use reference management tool when you are writing report. Plagiarism detection has to be done after your report is completed. While using the English language, while writing the report, you will use these English language detection. Okay, you can get it corrected, your report corrected through these particular softwares. Okay, now it doesn't matter what tools are there, but you should be able to use the right tool for the right purpose. That is a very, very important thing. We are all in the digital world. There is enormous information. Similarly, there are enormous tools available. But we should know that for which thing, which tool I am going to use. Otherwise, at the end of the day, again, it is like, in spite of having so much, this is the way I am actually using it. That should not be the case. Okay. To summarize our entire discussion on report writing, I would again like to emphasize that originality and novelty are most important for research report. It is a formal and serious and a meticulous activity. Depending on the type of report, the format, depending on the type of the report, the format and the guidelines both have to be followed. IMARD is generally common structure, but if it is a thesis, it will be augmented by many more components like contents and acknowledgements, because in thesis there is generally an acknowledgement section. In a research paper, there might be acknowledgements, there might not be an acknowledgement. So there are various sections which will be added, but basic structure of the report, whether it is science, social science, more or less will remain as IMARD. So you have to keep scientific principles in mind. All ethical practices of academic writing have to be very well followed. Feedbacks and revisions of your paper are always very, very necessary to improve the report. And as we saw that there are several tools for writing the research reports, but we have to choose which report is best suited for my requirement and whether I am very comfortable in using that particular tool. Again, it comes with practice, I understand, but whether it is worth investing that much time is what you have to very carefully evaluate. Okay, which tool to use for which particular activity has to be very carefully chosen by the researcher. Just because everybody is using Canva, I want to use Canva. No, my work does not require the use of Canva, so I will not use it. Okay, so be very clear and make, wherever possible, make good use of the tools, because it has to finally save your time, but that and enhance your format of the research report or enhance your presentation or quality in terms of language. But all this should be achievable. Just for the sake of using a tool, do not use a tool. See the objective of using a tool very clearly and then decide which tool you want to use. Okay. There are some important sites and some small courses which one can take up on scientific writing, which I have just listed. So Coursera also has one course on writing in the sciences, and researchforlife.org. I have personally done this course some years back and I found the course to be really good. So on each publisher's websites also there are various guidelines. Ref and Write is also a very good website which will help you. Enango, you see this website, it gives you a lot of information, okay, on writing, and some of the references which I have used for this presentation. Okay. And to conclude, I am again going to emphasize, just have a look at this cartoon strip where the supervisor is telling the student that if you write very easy and everyone will know how you have got the result, and then there is nothing scholarly about it, is a kind of a message that the research supervisor is telling the student. But that is not the correct way, and therefore this is in a form of a cartoon. But then putting it in Albert Einstein's words, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. So something, if you cannot explain it in simple words, in Albert Einstein says that you have not understood it well. So on this note, I would like to end, and I would be very happy to take if there are some questions and try to answer them. Okay.
So thanks a lot, madam, for a very nice session on the topic, and you have covered literally minche points on research report writing. And students, any question on this session, you are free to, free to ask the questions, please.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, this is Komal Harini from Bioinformatics Department, Guru Nanak Khalsa College. I'd like to know more about the graphical representation of abstract. Since I'm a bioinformatics student, I have a research project under my belt, in which I have developed a software.
Okay.
So, how am I supposed to put the question across in abstract and literature review as well?
Yeah. See, it again, when to use a graphical abstract, okay, will be dependent on the research problem that you are handling. Everything cannot be depicted as a graphical, in form of a graphical software, in form of a graphic, actually in form of a figure. So it very much depends on what kind of work you are doing and how you can represent it. So what I would suggest is you yourself just try to make it in form of a simple flowchart first. Okay, in form of a simple flowchart or arrows like we draw, no, simple, iske baad ye, and see whether your particular research problem is being able to be handled in that particular way. If you are able to represent, see, everything cannot be shown as a graphical form. Okay, there will be certain areas which only can be. So suppose some reaction, yes, you can show. Suppose effect of something on something. But everything, suppose I am a social science person, everything I will not be able to show it in the graphical format. So you have to first analyze and then see to it whether you can put the entire gist of your research work in the graphical format. So graphical abstract is a requirement of certain journals, where so those journals will primarily cover only such kind of areas where the research will be expressed in form of a graph. Okay, so first you have to understand whether your research problem can be expressed in form of a graphic, your entire research part. Some part of it, yes, definitely, but whether your entire, right from your research question to your findings, whether you can explain it in form of a graphic is what you have to consider by yourself. First, try and draw a simple flowchart and see if it works, and then try and use some of these tools for graphical software, and then make it if possible. I don't know whether I have been able to answer your question, but it very much primarily depends on the problem or your research area in which you are working.
Yes, ma'am, got it. Thank you so much.
Hello. Yeah, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Ma'am, the session was really wonderful. I have few queries with respect to the publication part.
Yeah,
ma'am, basically my part comes in bioinformatics section. So we are basically using some online softwares and tools to propose our study and to draw the results and conclusion for the same.
Yes.
But in that case, whenever I'm searching for the journals with not a very higher impact factor, but with a nominal impact factor, so in the UGC care, I'm unable to find the journals of my relevancy. And then when I start searching out on the other portals and via the various references, so it is difficult for me to search exact paper. And also when you have a very small work of hardly of 3 or 4 months, with a very small data set and a small result conclusion, few journals doesn't accept these type of works because they want something at a very high level work and with a very broad results and conclusion. So in this case, how to go about it?
Yeah, so there are 2-3 things which will actually, I will try and answer your question in that way, that you see from where your majority references are coming from. Okay, from where you are majorly using the references for your particular work, or which papers you have identified as some of the very fundamental and good papers in the area where you are doing research. Okay, identify them first. Some of them might be very, very high impact factor journals or very good journals where you are sure that your work may not be considered. But this is what something you feel. First, you have to see whether your work, now you have reached a stage where you feel that yes, I can publish. You want to see UGC care list. So have you seen the UGC care list thoroughly? Seeing all the journals which are in Scopus, and in addition to that, the ones which are identified through the care protocol.
Okay.
You have to see those two, three. Now the care UGC care list is in two parts. One is Web of Science Scopus indexed journals, and the second part is journals which are not in Web of Science and Scopus, but which are identified by UGC through a certain protocol. So be sure that you have checked both these things thoroughly. Okay, that is the second step. The third step is you might have identified certain publishers who are publishing in your area. Okay.
Okay.
Have you identified through your reading? You must have identified them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Go on the publisher's website. Okay, there is always a manuscript matcher. It is called by different names on the various websites. Okay, where you have to put your abstract.
Okay.
Once you paste your abstract there, it will give you suggestions based on your work that you can try to submit your article in journal A, journal B, journal C, and so on.
Okay.
This is also one of the possibility. And as far as impact factor and all is considered, I think right now you only see to it that you are going to a legitimate journal and forget all the other metrics for the journal at this point of time. Okay. You see to it that you approach a proper legitimate journal, which is a recognized journal in all formats, and then you see. So if it's a society publication, or if it's a publication from a good publisher, okay, you see this, you identify this manuscript matcher. It will be called by different names, but what it primarily does is when you put an abstract in that field there, then based on your abstract and your work, it will list out a few journals. Okay, it is also there now. If Web of Science and Scopus as colleges we don't have access to, but I would also actually suggest that whatever is free from Scopus and what we can search Scopus, some part of it, try and search that, or go to individual publishers' websites and search. So Elsevier, go on the Elsevier site, at least abstract level you will get something. Then you will be able to identify which journals are publishing similar kind of work that I want to do. Elsevier is just an example. Otherwise, you will think that मेरे को सादा journal भी नहीं मिल रहा है और मैडम मुझे Elsevier कहाँ बोल रहे हैं. It's not like that. It's just a simple example that I'm giving you. So try and search on that, and then you will be able to shortlist some journals. But very importantly, you have to also see from where your references are coming from, which are the most important journals that you have used for your work. Okay, so that will be the closely related area which publishes what you are working.
Yes, okay, ma'am. Thank you.
And revision always improves your manuscript. So as if you have followed proper scientific principles, try and submit your journal there. The peer reviewers, the comments which they give, they definitely only improve our writing. Okay, so don't hesitate on that front. But as long as you are sure that you have followed all scientific principles.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And thank you, Neela, ma'am, for organizing this. Actually, I was planning for my students, but you have already organized this. It was helpful for my students even. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, madam. Yeah, there is one another question. What is the difference between rationale and relevance of the research work?
Rational, I actually from the words I can explain the meaning. Rational is the thought behind doing the particular research. What is the rationale? Why this particular work is necessary? Why am I doing the particular work? Rationale for the research is very commonly used mostly in psychology and social sciences, where we primarily say what is the rationale behind doing something. So what is the logic? Why you want to do particular search? And relevance means how relevant it is going to be to the field. How is it relevant that I need to study this? Why? Whether there is a gap in doing so, and what is the gap that is there? Okay, so relevance means how relevant it is. If already studies are similar, then relevant can mean whether now if technology has gone forward then and if you are searching that, it is irrelevant. So relevance can mean a lot of things. Relevance, most of it means how correct it is to do it right now in this. And rational is what is the need or what is the logic behind doing a particular study, is what I understand from the two terms and the way they are used when we are writing about research.
So I think, Nahid, your question is being answered. So further question. So any question on any part of research writing, any technology part, any tool parts?
Ma'am, this is Komal Halini again.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I would like to know that how I am developing an application, a software. So I
Yeah.
have codes written. Now in methodology, how do I put across my codes and what should be held back? Because the novel part is also there uh, in my project. There's a small part which is not being developed yet. And should I include that code or should I hold back a few of things? Because as suggested from the last code that you had displayed on the screen. So I'm a little confused about that.
First, let me clarify. I am actually not a bioinformatics expert, so I will just broadly try to guide you from the point of view of a publication generally and not specific to your subject. As far as what I understand, what you mean by holding back is you don't want to give everything in one publication. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah. So you don't want to give entire research work in one publication is what you want to say. Yes, but the part that you wish to give, is it novel enough to be worth a publication is something that you need to verify. Okay, so giving some part of it. So it's kind of slicing your research work, right? Is what you want to say to some extent, that you will give some part of your research work in one publication, some part in the other publication. Okay, you don't want to reveal your entire research work in one publication. But what you want to reveal, whether it is enough to be worth a publication is also something that you need to consider. If yes, then you can give that much of code. That code independently should exist or independently should be able to produce a desirable result. Is that what it does?
Yes, ma'am. It is actually an approach.
Yeah, so if it does independent, without the pre and the post part of the code, if the part of the code that you independently want to give in a particular publication, if it independently works, then yes, you can only give that much in your publication number 1 and maybe something in the publication number 2. But very importantly, independently, that particular part of research should be able to show something. That is the main part you have to consider when you are publishing. Okay, I have studied 8 dimensions of a particular thing. I don't want to give all the 8 in one paper, but I might be able to give one dimensional, but that one dimension should be independent of the others to become a publication by itself. Okay, so that you have to keep in mind when you are presenting that. And yes, as you are rightly considering that you don't want to reveal everything in one publication, which is fine, because you are working on it, you are developing it, but you require certain publications also. So you might still go ahead with an independent part of it, which is acceptable.
Okay, ma'am. Yes, got it. Thank you.
So anybody else who has question on research report writing? can put your comments for the lecture in the chat box. If you have any question, you can put it in the chat box. So I think all questions have been answered nicely by madam. So I'm very much thankful to Dr. Meghna Sanjeeva for this thought-provoking lecture on research report writing, and many of them who are in PG and who are doing research will come out with nice fruitful research reports in due course. And this particular lecture will surely will help them for this research report writing thing. And the whole sessions, I mean the whole 3 sessions, I mean this is the last concluding session of this particular workshop on digital skills in research. So all the sessions start from the literature search to research management tools to research report writing. I am thankful to all the speakers, eminent speakers from Mumbai who took the sessions and who shared their expertise on the subject. And I know this will be beneficial for our research students as well as PG students who are into research. And all the best to all the students who please inculcate the research habits in yourself, those who are doing PG, who are in first year, and be productive researcher. And all the best to all of you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as every day I am putting feedback link in our WhatsApp group. Okay.